Welcome to Radio Graham. Today we visit the Stockman's Hall of Fame in Longreach in Outback, Queensland. We also visit a museum that's dedicated to the Flying Doctor Service.
Hi, Dick Smith here. Most of us, including myself, live close to the coast in this wonderful continent. Yet we're all identified with the Outback. About 30 years ago, a group of Australians got together. Dame Mary Dura, Hugh Saury, R.M. Williams, Ken Cowley, Ranald Chandler and Sir James Walker, to name but a few. The result was this magnificent Stockman's Hall of Fame. The Stockman has played a crucial role in the development of this country in the way that we as Australians see ourselves. I hope you enjoyed the film and your visit.
Being a Stockman is being real. You don't get much more real in life than livestock.
It was Stockman that helped build this great country of ours, men and women, and their youngsters too, often working alongside their Indigenous counterparts in a hot, dry land. Stockman not only cared for sheep and cattle, but they also cleared land, fenced paddocks, dug dams, and drove stock to markets, sometimes hundreds of miles away. They were often gone for months at a time. It was the Stockman that helped put Australia on the map.
Stockmen have always been resourceful, resilient, tough. I think people in the city have a romance with the bush. It's part of Australia's culture and heritage. Australia's come so far in 200 years, or a little over 200 years, and possibly for 150 years of that, Stockmen have played a huge part.
Empire builders like the Durack family and Sir Sidney Kidman created a stream of cattle and sheep properties that stretched across this huge dry continent. They opened up the land to growth and opportunity. Kidman gave many a Stockman their start, including a young saddler named R.M. Williams, who went on to create his own empire.
When I took my first pack saddles to him, he indicated that I should send him an account. I told him that it wasn't possible for anybody in my position because I had no money to buy the raw materials. And he gave a bit of a grin. He wasn't a man to smile much, but he gave a bit of a grin and he gave me the money.
Sir Sidney Kidman became known as the Cattle King, yet even at the height of his wealth and power, he still saw himself as being just a simple stockman. Being a stockman means working in the Australian outback, the bush, and while it can be harsh, unforgiving country, it can also be very beautiful.
When you're living with nature, you blend into it, you become part of it. You don't try and fight it, you become part of your environment and what's around you. It's totally different to the hustle and bustle of the city. It's romantic, it is tough, make no mistake, but it's wholesome.
They're up before sunrise and they might spend the whole day mustering or branding or drafting. If you want to be a stockman, you've got to love it.
I just love being a stockman. I love the work. Stars of a night time, full moon, out in the bush. Mate, you can't beat it. Love it.
It's a simple, uncomplicated life, but it takes years to become a good stockman. And often the skills are handed down from generation to generation.
It's the way, sort of being brought up as stockman, and it's in your blood, never leaves you really. Once it's there, it's there.
man, but you can still be a lady.
For a woman, it's a tough life out in the bush. They're often on their own for weeks at a time when the men are out mustering or droving.
It can be very lonely. You try and busy yourself. There's so many jobs you have to do on your own. You know, that's checking the waters, pulling cows out of bogs, whatever needs fixing, you are it.
I know even when my mum was growing up, a lot of women were expected to stay inside and you know, the men did the outside work and the women did the inside work, and I think a few women started to buck the system and men realised that would help and they could do both.
We're not as gung-ho as men generally can be. We don't just rush in and do things. We seem to have a think about things and have a look at what needs to be done. Women and men both learn from one another. They learn a tolerance of each other, and the guys give us a little bit of lip, we can give it back as good as we get it.
I think women are making men a little more gentler as stockmen. I think it just creates a good balance actually in the stock.
Without Aboriginal stockmen, it's doubtful the Australian outback would have opened up as fast as it did. Their age-old understanding of the land has helped pastoralists enormously.
They, by virtue of their knowledge of the country, their tracking ability, were the eyes and the ears of any white man who lived there. And Kidman would know, obviously, that the Aborigines were the best possible people to man his station.
Aboriginal people know the land and you know, dry time they know where the little water holes and things will be, and they know the tracks.
We're born and bred because we know everything, you know. As far as the animals go, we know everything goes to what's really wrong.
What he knows today has been shown to him by his elders. He's a very smart man.
The Aboriginal stockman has played a crucial role in the development of the bush, and many a property has made it through hard times, largely because of the work and dedication of their Indigenous stockmen.
I'm proud of this stockman, and I always will. I die a stockman. I'm born one, I'm proud to be one, and I'll die one.
They start young. By age 3 or 4, they'll be riding a horse. By 7 or 8, they'll be driving a truck.
15, don't have a license, or don't need one. Just drive around the back roads and hope that you don't come across a copper.
Youngsters grow up fast in the bush. They see life and death at a tender age, and they learn how to deal with it. They learn from their mums and dads, and from the veteran stockmen too.
The Outbacks teach me sort of everything, what to do and how to act. There's not just cattle and sheep, it's life lessons like maintaining yourself and having respect and life necessities.
Many stockmen were born on a property, and it's in their blood. They love life in the bush, and they hate the thought of going to the city.
Hate the city. You go there and too many people and cars and look around, there's nothing to do.
You drive to the city and there's a point on the road where people actually stop waving to you. Country people, you can wave, do what you like with one finger, they'll always wave. But then she just cuts off and no one will wave. You might get 1 or 2, and I'll bet they come from the bush.
The iconic image of the stockman on his horse with his sheep or cattle is quickly becoming a thing of the past.
A lot of these pastoral properties are finding it harder to get good stockmen. I do a lot of work for properties that, you know, it might be only myself in the helicopter doing the mustering, plus, you know, the husband and the wife and one stockman on the bike. You know, there's still plenty of places that do helicopter work and have stockmen on horses, and that's an ideal setup.
To be an effective aerial stockman, you not only need to be an accomplished pilot, you also need to know stock.
You need to understand the stock, you need to know what they're thinking just about, you've got to be able to read them. It just just helps in the whole operation. You'll find in the industry, most of the helicopter pilots are either being brought up on the land and come through being a stockman on the ground.
Mechanisation is making an impact on stock work out here. Time is money, and the romantic past is taking on a more modern mantle.
I'd like it the way it was years ago. Yeah, I wish it was still the same now. Yeah, for sure.
The Outback is shrinking with mobile phones and the internet. What was once remote is now connected. Bush skills are no longer valued so highly. Does the stockman still have a place in this changing landscape?
I believe there'll always be stockmen. Whilst there's livestock, there'll always be stockmen. Stockmen are people that know stock and understand stock. And if you're dealing with livestock, you're going to have people that can associate with stock.
Women are sure to play a larger role in stock work in the future, managing properties and being head stockman. Mechanisation will also make further inroads, and stockmen will have to adapt.
The modern stockman is being pushed further and further into the remote areas. You know, today's stockman has to be a businessman, has to wear so many different hats, whereas the stockmen of years gone by, that's just what they were just stockmen.
It's inevitable that life in the bush will change, but the land out here is timeless, ageless, and the land forges character, so the spirit of the stockman will never change.
There's always going to be a future in stockwork, it'll never die. What's a meal without meat?
While ever there's an outback, while ever there's sheep and cattle, while ever they need mustering or droving across this great land of ours, there will always be an Australian stockman.
Back in a lonely homestead, 100 miles from medical assistance, and in fact from the nearest neighbour, we reenact for you an actual happening when one of the station hands is overcome by an attack of acute appendicitis. At 6 a.m. he refuses food and is obviously very badly off colour. However, he attempts to commence the day's work. By means of its pedal radio transmission set, the homestead sends out a call for help to the hospital 100 miles away. On the air from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, the wireless operator at the base station of Australian Aerial Medical Services takes the call and sends a message to the flying doctor. He is as accessible as a suburban practitioner and proceeds immediately to listen to a description of the sick man's symptoms. He then tells the station what to do to ease the patient until he arrives. In the meantime, the doctor's bag is being packed. He phones his pilot to prepare his plane for an urgent trip, and the pilot studies the route to be taken. In but a very few minutes, the flying doctor is in the air on his mission of mercy. The 6 flying doctors associated with the Australian Aerial Medical Services cover 100,000 miles a year over country which is almost uninhabited and unexplored, and where it would take days and even weeks to travel by road. The Flying Doctor Services have surely provided a mantle of safety for the people of the Outback. Almost as quickly as you could obtain medical help in a populated area, the Flying Doctor and his nurse are with the patient. After temporary treatment, he is placed on the special stretcher and removed to the aerial ambulance, which is capable of landing on and taking off from small aerodromes. Before the trip back to the base, the doctor gives instructions by wireless to the inland hospital to prepare for the patient, so that no time is lost in receiving attention. At all bases, an ambulance is available for transport from aerodrome to hospital. And at the well-equipped hospitals, the patients receive the same treatment as they would in a large city institution. Within 4 hours of the first report, the patient has been called for, transported 100 miles by air, 6 miles by road, and is about to be operated on. Without the Flying Doctor, this man would undoubtedly have died. Numbers of similar cases occur every year, and more than anything else perhaps, the Australian Aerial Medical Services, with their widely spread base stations, are making it possible for the outback country to be populated. It is a wonderful comfort to the womenfolk that they can obtain medical help within a very short time. No part of Australia is more than 4 hours away from medical assistance, a truly remarkable performance. And no other country in the world provides such a unique service as that founded by the Right Reverend John Flynn, and now maintained by the Australian Aerial Medical Service.